China. So it's very, I want you to brief me on key issues. And we were having our problems at that time. Even at that time, there was a listing problem. There was staple visas problem. They were not dealing with our northern command. There were, all these Arunachal.
There was some Gujarati diamond.
Yes, there was a bunch of Gujarati
Surat
diamond traders who had also been detained. He brought that up as well. After I was done with him, and we went for the meetings, and then we were riding in the same car. So he said, I have this habit. He said, मैं हर मीटिंग के बाद मैं डीब्रीफ लेता हूँ, और अगर आपको कहीं कुछ लगता है कि थिंग्स आर नॉट ओके, आप इशारा करिए. Okay. So I remember this because, for me, there is a certain manner of working which he has. He's all the time like gauging, sensing, very, very sensitive to this, very keen that he should not make a mistake, that he should convey things accurately, that the policy, that the nuances are captured. This was my first experience of him. After that, I didn't see him till he became Prime Minister.
Okay. Is it the same now? Before he travels, after he travels, when you travel, is it the same kind of thing? Foreign policy matters, you talk to each other where he asks questions, you answer, you ask questions, he answers. Is that how it works?
No, it is and it isn't. I mean, intrinsically it is the same, but it's now on a totally different scale and league.
Sure.
So now what happens is usually, we would strategize before, we spend, usually I'd say even not at the beginning of the year, but even in the previous year, we'd start thinking, what should we be doing? Where are we going? Who should we engage? That kind of strategy session. When it comes to something specific, it would be like we would go through the details of where we are going, what are the objectives, who are we meeting, what are their objectives. So there's a kind of I would say strategizing and a game planning which goes well ahead, and then it's repeatedly visited, reviewed. So sometimes even in the midst of meetings, you would see us, one of us lean across and say something to him, or him doing the same. Or if there's a break in a meeting, we would have a quick confabulation. I mean, you could, since A&I films a lot of this, you would often see, there's a quick huddle where you're quickly saying something, we are updating, or he's sharing. He's,
we can't hear though because there's no microphone.
Fortunate. Thank God you can't hear because, that would kind of destroy our strategizing.
We should get somebody to see the lip syncing and see what's happening there.
But he's a very discussive person, if you know what I mean. And he has views, but he's very open to, opinion, agreement, disagreement, improvement, mitigation. It's very sort of, how do I say, interactive.
Lots of people say that he's a very ideas kind of a man. In fact, some of the questions were on YouTube with that. And my team has made a video, which I'm going to show it to you.
I'm part of the East, I'm part of the South, I'm part of the West, I'm universal. I'm India. Someone to say, I'm doing this because it is for counter-terrorism. You're not fooling anybody by saying these things. Mr. Soros is a old, rich, opinionated person. If I could only stop at old, rich and opinionated, I would put it away. But he is old, rich, opinionated and dangerous. Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems. But the world's problems are not Europe's problems. Our total purchases for the month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon. I don't think we're sitting on the fence. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't make me sitting on the fence. It means I'm sitting on my ground. I'm entitled to have my own side. I'm entitled to weigh my own interests, make my own choices. You're asking the wrong minister when you say, how long will we do this? Because it is the ministers of Pakistan who will tell you how long Pakistan intends to practice terrorism. If you have snakes in your backyard, you can't expect them to bite only your neighbors. Eventually, they will bite the people who keep them in the backyard. If I were to take Europe collectively, which has been singularly silent on many things which were happening, for example in Asia, you could ask, why would anybody in Asia trust Europe on anything at all? If you are asking me, I would say yes, 2014 was a watershed moment. Yes, things have changed better after 2014. Yes, our foreign policy has become more dynamic, more effective, more prominent after 2014.
Mr. Modi was very famous and very demanding. So how do you deal with that?
I'm so glad you chose that understated word, demanding. Yes, I think the Prime Minister is demanding. I think he's rightly demanding, because it's time that India had a demanding person as Prime Minister. It's tough to work for a demanding boss, but at the end of the day, you actually, if you feel that's the kind of person the country needs, I think you're willing to do whatever you have to do at that time.
Two democracies will end it differently. And if you can prove that concept here, then I think it's probably the best way to sell democracy.
Don't worry, Senator, one democracy will settle it. And you know which one. Okay.
Lindsey Graham. So this,
All right.
so this is what we, my team got this together,
Okay.
and the same thing about being a demanding prime minister. One has heard about how you have 11 p.m. meetings and 11:30 midnight, post-midnight meetings happen in this cabinet. And it's like working, especially during COVID times when these crises happen, the Ukraine situation where Indian students had to be evacuated. Those are like very tense times, right? And he's on the job all the time.
Well, look, I don't want you to get it wrong. It's not like you particularly want to meet or the meetings happen at 11 o'clock or late at night kind of thing. I think it's a situation, it's partly the Prime Minister's schedule. But you mentioned, for example, the Ukraine conflict, Operation Ganga. Now, what was happening at that time was that the Prime Minister was busy campaigning in UP, if you remember at that time. Now,
last year, same time.
Yep. Now,
24th of February. I think.
A little bit later.
Yeah, 20.
Okay. Now, it could have been, I don't know, maybe some other Prime Minister would have said, okay, guys, I'm busy with UP now, you go manage this. But I think it bothered him. He felt he needed to get a good sense. I mean, lives were at stake. So we would have situations where he would campaign the whole day, come back to Delhi. I mean, you could see sometimes, how exhausted he was. And then somewhere he would find that energy and the adrenaline. And we would meet late because he's come back late from campaigning. Sometimes the situation would call for it. I think I once mentioned this, maybe in one of those same occasions you showed me right now, where which was our consulate in Mazar-e-Sharif being attacked. And I remember I think it was past midnight, and I also have this habit of staying up late, and I like to clear my desk every day without fail. And in fact, he called up, and normally, some other guy comes up and sort of says the PM wants to talk to you. In this case, it was him. And so I think if there is something happens, he feels, he feels deeply about it. He sort of feels it's not like ask somebody to do something. He wants to know that it's being done. Now, mind you, having said that, I also say this as his working style, that once an objective is achieved or a mission is set or whatever it is, you get the space to then carry it out.
Okay.
So, say Operation Ganga, I mean, he would want to know what we were doing. He would sometimes give suggestions saying, अच्छा आप ये कभी इसके बारे में सोचा, कभी इसका भी देखिएगा, वहाँ भी ये करिए. But it was not like he was wanting to, get down. He trusted you with the details. And That's why, I mean, for me, the sort of, I would say, the pleasure of working with him. I mean, what does anybody need from a boss? You need from a boss somebody who gives you a goal with clarity,